So we're going to cover Docusign today. So this is the basic session. So I'm just going to teach it the one way. There's a lot of ways to use Docusign. But until you grasp it, I'd like to just teach it this one way. 2 weeks from today, I am teaching advanced Docusign. If you want to learn different ways that might make more sense to you, they might flow a little bit better depending on how you like to work. But until you have the basics, this way is kind of the most straightforward. So I'm going to start at the very beginning in web forms. So I created a transaction kit and I have 3 documents in here that I'm going to need signed by my seller. So I'm just going to start by downloading these documents. So I'm just going to download each one. And for those of you who are familiar with web forms, you'll notice I downloaded them individually. There is a way to download all of the documents at one time, but it puts it into one PDF, which can cause problems down the road if you need to send just one document to somebody, or when you're uploading it to Command later to submit to the office, they need to be separate. So that's why I downloaded all 3 separately instead of as one document. So now that I've got my documents downloaded, I'm going to go to Command, and I'm going to start an opportunity. So before I can start an opportunity, my client has to be in my contacts in Command in order to attach them to the opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and create a contact. So I'm just going to my contact screen and then clicking add contact. And I'm going to name this person test or January test. All right, and then I'm just going to put in my personal email so I can sign down the road. So that's all you need is a name and an email. Of course, if you're using Command to store your database, you definitely want to include more information, but that is the bare minimum. All right, so now I have my contact in my contacts. So I'm going to go to opportunities, which is the shaking hands button. You can click on the red KW to expand the menu so you can see what those icons mean. So we're going to opportunities. And I'm going to create an opportunity. So just think of an opportunity as a transaction. So every transaction that you do will have an opportunity associated with it. So in doing this, everybody on this call only belongs to one market center. So this dropdown, you won't have any other options. So you just leave that as Keller Williams select. If you belong to a team, you would select your team here. If you're an individual agent, this will be grayed out and don't worry about it. Opportunity type. So you're just going to choose here if it's a listing or a buyer. So if you're doing new listing paperwork, you're going to choose listing. If you're doing buyer paperwork, you're going to do buyer. If you're representing one person doing both sides, that's 2 separate opportunities. So if someone's selling their house and buying another, that person would have 2 opportunities, one listing opportunity and one buyer opportunity. Okay, because remember, an opportunity is a transaction, and that's 2 separate transactions. The owner here is only applicable if you're on a team, and that's up to you and your rainmaker how that works, who would be the owner of this transaction. So it might be you or it might be the rainmaker, depending on where this lead came from and how your team functions. So here's where you're going to attach your client. So I'm going to start typing in my client's name and add them there. If you have 2 sellers, so if it's a couple, you would add the second person here. The opportunity name, you should get in habit of putting the opportunity name as the transaction address. You may not know it. If you're representing a buyer, you might not know it from the start. But you can edit it down the road once you know what the property address is. I'm just going to include Docusign at the end because I use 222 Waterfront Drive often. So I just want to make sure I know which one I'm dealing with. Tags it's up to you for your sorting and filtering. Some people like to tag it where this transaction came from. So if it's a referral from their sphere of influence, they might tag it as like sphere referral. If it came from their hockey team, they might tag it as hockey. It's totally up to you what you use tags for, and you don't have to use them if you don't want to. Closing date is not a required field, and you likely don't know the closing date when you're first starting, so that's fine. You should put in the estimated listing price, and then if I had chosen that this was a buyer opportunity up here, it would say estimated budget. And then commission rate, we're going to hope for 2.5. And then you're going to choose which part of your pipeline. Now, this isn't related to Docusign, but if you're using the pipeline for your opportunities, so keeping track of what stage of the process this opportunity is in, you would choose here. So if someone called and asked for a listing appointment, you'd put them in the appointment phase. If you're doing listing paperwork and creating an active listing right away, you can put it right into active. If it's anything before an appointment, if you just know that they might sell their house, you put it in cultivate. So I'm just going to put this one in active. Again, this isn't really related to Docusign. And then the assignee down here, again, only applies if you're on a team. So the assignee is who is dealing with this transaction. So if you're on a team and your rainmaker owns this transaction, if it was the rainmaker's lead, maybe they own it, but you're the one dealing with it. So you would be the assignee down here. And there might be a couple of people in here. So these are all the members on my team. So if both Jessica and I are dealing with this client, I could put both of us there. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this opportunity. So here you can see all the details. So like I said, you can edit anything.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that in the assignees, there is no need to mention any name if you are only in a team, right?
Yeah, so the assignee there was only if you're on a team. So you're an individual agent, so you don't need to worry about that part.
So what about other things, can you mention one more time? Can you go back for 1 second?
So if you're on a team, or sorry, if you're an individual agent, you're going to ignore the team field right here.
Okay.
You're going to ignore the owner.
Okay.
And you're going to ignore assignees.
Okay.
Okay. So that's just deciding who on the team is responsible for what. So if you're an individual agent, those 3 fields don't apply to you because you are responsible for everything.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back into my pipeline here and find that opportunity I just made. So it's right here. So I'm just going to click on the title and it will take me right back to where we just were. So like I said, you can edit anything down the road. So to edit, you just click this pencil and you can change anything at all. So if you're representing a buyer and now you know what property they're buying, you can change the name. If the listing price changes, you can change that, anything at all. Okay, so we're going to click on the Documents tab right here. So right now we're on Details, but we're going to click on Documents. And then we're going to click on Start a Transaction. So when I click Start a Transaction, it's going to take me into Docusign. So in Docusign, there are what's called rooms. So rooms are basically the same thing as an opportunity or the same thing as like a folder on your computer. So each transaction would have its own room. Okay, if you're familiar with dotloop, any new agent you wouldn't be, but if you used to use dotloop, a room is the same as a loop. So you can see right here, it created a room for me and it named it the same as what I named my opportunity. Okay, everybody see that? Yeah, all right. So right now we're in the room of 222 Waterfront Drive. and I'm on the Documents tab. So I already have my documents prepared. I have them downloaded down here. They're in my downloads folder on my computer. And I need to send them to my clients to get signatures. So this is really corny, but it does tend to help people remember. Every time you send documents, you have to put them in an envelope. So if you think of regular mail, you can't just put paperwork in the mail without an envelope. It's not going to go anywhere. You have to fold it, put it in an envelope, address the envelope, and put it in the mail, right? So remember that. So every time you want to send something, you have to put it in an envelope. People often try to send from the Documents tab, and you can't. You have to go to envelopes. And remember, once an envelope is sent, you cannot add more paperwork to it. You have to start with a new envelope. So once you send an envelope, that envelope's gone. Every time you send paperwork, you start a new envelope, okay? So to start a new envelope, we're just going to click the New button. And we're going to name our envelope. So we already know that it's related to 222 Waterfront Drive because that's what room we're in. So what documents are going in this envelope? So in this case, we're doing the listing documents. So I'm just going to name this Listing Docs. And now we're going to add documents to the envelope. So which documents are we sending? So you're going to click More and Upload to upload these documents that I downloaded down here. Now there's a couple ways you can do it. Because I can still see these, I can drag them. Whoops, or not. So I'm just going to go into my Downloads folder and find these three here. We'll wait a second for them to appear. So now we need to add recipients. So I need to add my client, which was January test. And I also have to add myself because when we're doing listing paperwork, I have to sign it as the agent. So that is different from .loop if you're used to .loop. So we're just going to click on Room Participants right here. So all of these ones, these three up here are defaulted. So you can just, or sorry, these two, KW Admin and Keller Williams Select Realty are just defaulted because you belong to the KW Docusign. So down here, it has myself in here and it's deemed me as listing agent because I own the Docusign account. Obviously, I'm going to be the agent. And then January test is my client and it's deemed them as seller one. So it pulled our information from command into Docusign. So you don't have to type your seller's email address again. So right here, you'll see they both say needs to sign, which is correct in this case. We both have to sign this paperwork. So I'm going to leave that alone. If you needed to add somebody else here to just receive a copy, you could add them. So you just choose by email address because they're not already in here. You'd put their first and last name and then their email. And you could choose that they just receive a copy. So the difference between needs to view and receives a copy is the needs to view, they'll get an email from Docusign and they have to click on that email and open up Docusign to see it. Or receives a copy, it's just going to send them an email with the document attached. So that's up to you. If you need proof that they opened it, you need to choose needs to view. If you just want to send them the copy, then just receives a copy. Also in that scenario, I would add them as number 2. So what that means is Aaron and January are going to get this envelope at the exact same time. Both number 1s will get it right away, but number 2 will not receive it until both number 1s are complete. So once they've both signed. So I might send this to January now, but she might not sign it until tomorrow night. So that means test down here will not get it until tomorrow night when January signs. Okay. I'm not actually going to include that right now. So a situation that you might use that is if you're writing an offer, you might add the listing agent down here. So as soon as your client signs the offer, it goes directly to the listing agent. Couple things, you maybe don't want to do that because you want to make sure you want to read over the offer again before you send it to the listing agent. And also be aware any message that you write to your client down here will also go to that person. So if you're writing an offer and sending it directly to the listing agent, you don't want to write anything in here to your client for the listing agent to see. So it's not a great idea unless you literally have no other options. You're super time crunched, but you should make a habit of looking over the offer before you send it to the listing agent. So down here, it's just going to be the email subject and the email message. So whatever you want your client to see here. Whatever you would normally say to your client. So we're going to go to next. This is just going to open up the documents that we've put here. And we just need to say who needs to sign where. All right, so we have the working with a realtor here, and my client needs to initial right here. So over here, you can see my name, and I'm the listing agent. See the yellow dot next to my name, and all of these fields are yellow. So that means anything that I place over here in yellow is for me to do. If I change this drop down, January's color is blue. So if I click on January, all of these turn to blue. So any blue fields over here is for January. So I'm going to put a blue initial right here. I'm going to make that smaller just because I don't like how big it is. I'm going to scroll to the next page. So remember, I filled this out in web forms. So now my client needs to sign. So I'm going to use signature. And again, I'm going to make that smaller so it fits on the line better. Still blue because we still need January to sign here. And down here where it says date, you have to use the date signed field. So what that does is whenever January opens up this document and signs, it will place the date and time that she signed. So if she doesn't get around to it until tomorrow night, it will put January 15th at 8 p.m., whatever time it might be. So now we need an initial here. So we're going to put an initial there. Now there are a couple shortcuts. So I know that on the SDBA, the document that we're on now, the client needs to initial on the same spot on each page. So what I can do, especially if you have two here, so let's just pretend there's two clients for a second. I can drag over both of these fields. Do you see how now there's the blue box around it? You can tell both of them are like highlighted and selected. If I press Control C on my keyboard or Command C if you use a Mac, that's copy. And when I scroll to the next page, if I press Control V, it pastes them in the exact same spot on the next page. If that's confusing to you, don't worry about it. It's totally not necessary. It's just a little shortcut. If you have multiple things you need to be that need to be the same over and over again. So I'm just going to delete those. So to delete them, you just have to click on them and press delete on your keyboard. So I need another initial here. And then down here, I need my seller to sign right here. So again, I'm going to put a signature and a date. And then I have to sign down here as the listing agent. So I'm going to change this color, change the drop down to me. So now I'm putting a yellow field. And again, date signed. So you need to make sure that the date signed is the appropriate color for the appropriate person. If you had two sellers, their signatures need to be dated when they actually signed. So if Bob is up here and Mary's down here, they might sign at different times. So you just need to make sure you have the right colored boxes everywhere. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll just finish this document down here. Actually, I'll just quickly, let's say I meant to put something in additional provisions right here, but I forgot to do it when I was in web forms. Instead of having to go back to web forms, adding it, downloading it, uploading it again, starting over, I can choose a text box here. So I can put a text box and I can type in whatever I want there. I can make it however big I want, however small I want. Just remember, if you're adding any text boxes, make sure it's assigned to you. If I had this assigned to January, when I send it to her, she could then type in here anything she wants. And there are very few instances that you want your client typing on the documents. Pretty much a property disclosure statement is the only time you want them typing anything. So if you're using text boxes, make sure they're assigned to you. For all of the newer agents on the call, when we sent you your paperwork to join Keller Williams, I used Docusign to send it to you, and I assigned the text fields to you so you could type in your date of birth, your address, things like that. So just remember that your clients would have the exact same ability if you assigned it to them. So you can notice all of these fields down here that are available. So there's also check boxes. So if we forgot, oh yeah, we're doing a property disclosure statement as well. I forgot to check it off when I was in web forms. I can do that now. Most of these aren't going to apply. Like we're not going to be using formulas. One thing that is nice, if you didn't use web forms, or if you forgot this field, you could, if I forgot to put my name right here, I could just put full name and it's going to pull my name because it knows the yellow field is my name. So Christine just asked about strike throughs, and I was actually just about to show that one next. So to use the strike through, you're going to click on this pencil and then line. So let's say I needed to cross out this clause. I'm just going to use the line to put an X through it. And then every time you cross something out, you need your clients to initial. So I'm just going to put an initial there and mine as well. Okay, so that's just under this pencil. All right, so I'll just finish this last document just because I think they only have to sign the last page. Yeah, so I'm going to switch back to my client and put their signature. There we go. So one other quick check that you can do is see this blue tag on these pages, and then this one has yellow and blue. That means that there's something assigned to the blue person, which is January, on this page and this page. And on this one, there's something for both blue and yellow. So I placed the full name box here. That's why the yellow's there. Blue and yellow here, and then just blue here. So generally, your clients have to sign every page except for the input form. I thought they had to initial it, but I don't see it. Generally, clients sign almost every single page. So you can quickly scroll through here and make sure you didn't miss any pages. Okay. So everything's ready. I'm just going to click send. So because I have to sign, Docusign's going to refresh here, and then it's going to tell me that I have to sign. So you'll see right here, it says needs my signature. So I'm going to go ahead and just sign it now so I don't forget. When I click on it, you can see the two recipients and what status they're at. So I can see I still need to sign and my client still needs to sign. So there are times that, like, let's say you have two clients and they both said, we signed it, but you didn't get something completed back. you can come in and see which one did complete and which one it still says needs to sign. And then that way you can say, oh, Joe, it's still saying that you need to sign. Maybe you forgot to click finish. It might be something like that. So I just wanted to point out, remember I added the full name box. So it just placed my name in there. I had done it in web forms too, so it wasn't necessary, but I just wanted to show you. And then see this text box that was assigned to me, I can type in it still. So your clients would have the exact same capability if it was assigned to them. So I cannot stress enough to not ever assign that to your clients. Okay, so I'm all done. I'm going to click finish. So we'll see now, my envelope now says it's waiting for others. So if I click on it, it shows me that I'm done signing, but January hasn't signed yet. So you can always check where it's held up. So I'm just going to quickly sign on my phone for January. Okay, so you'll just notice that some of the signatures are going to show up as test buyer. That's just because I use my personal email all the time and I always give it a different name, so it's confused. It like has a Docusign account with a bunch of different names. So if I refresh this here, actually you'll also see I have an email saying that my client opened it. So January test viewed. And then I also have the completed. So I know everybody's done everything. It gives me the 3 documents attached at the bottom. So if I need to do something with those, I can. Now I come back into Docusign. If I refresh this page, whoops. That was my fault. I typed a 3 instead of enter. So you have recently viewed rooms, so it's easy to find whichever transactions you're working on. So if I go back to my envelopes tab, you'll see it now says completed. If I go to my documents tab, you'll see all the documents. So it does duplicate the documents. So you'll see working with the real estate industry, there's 2 of. So there's the original one that was uploaded that was filled out, but no signatures, and then the signed version. So that happens in all cases. And then it also gives you a certificate. The certificate you won't need too often. It's just, it shows the time your client signed, what IP address they signed from, things like that. So you don't really need it unless there's a problem. Or if you forget to put the date and timestamp for signatures, then you'll need this to show what time and what date that they signed. But it is always here. It's important that it exists, but you don't always need it. One thing I like to point out is when I started the envelope, I named it listing docs. and see how this says certification listing docs. So that's the certificate for that entire envelope. If I left it as please DocuSign, which is the default envelope name, every time you send documents, it's going to create a certificate called certification please DocuSign. And if you need to find one, it's hard to find because they're all named the same thing. So that's why it's important to name your envelopes appropriately. I just see a question over here in chat. If I have 2 clients on a transaction who share an email address, once I set up both clients in Command, will 2 emails be sent? That's not possible. They need separate email addresses. You can't set up 2 different clients in Command with the same email address, and DocuSign won't allow it either. So the easiest way around that is just to create a Gmail for the other person and say, you don't need to use this, just use it to sign joesmith@gmail.com. I'm sure joesmith@gmail.com is not available, but just to get the signatures done. But no, they can't share an email address. So that's it. We have our signed documents now. So if I click on these, you will see everything. So you'll see, here's where I added my name again. Here's the strike through I put with the initials, the initials. There's that text box that I typed in, and signatures. Any questions? No?